So, because we can't ever just let things lie. I'm going to pass it over to Kat, who's going to keep going with this same feel.
Yeah. As a trigger warning, I'm going to be covering the same stuff: racism, oppression, genocide, classism. Like, it's all gonna be in there. So in my section, my primary topic is also classism, racism, and access to care. So Us is a film that is intentionally titled because it is a critique of us. The main conflict of the film could be interpreted in countless ways and has through an array of analysis articles. So what I'm going to say is not necessarily new, but rather a connecting of dots on like a board, with the red string. In analyzing Us, it positions itself as a critique of American society and our need to other people to justify and rationalize the atrocities that convenience capitalism causes without us seeing. The damage of our daily comforts concealed from us as if hidden in an underground bunker. Social media acts as a gateway to that bunker, but still at a distance. To those who live in comfort, the privilege, the pain of those tethered to that comfort and their actions is not of their concern. This is not exclusive to class issues in America, but also through how America and other Western countries destroy, like literally decimate and destroy and colonize other nations for their benefit. Now, there are so many examples of this that it would take the entire episode to outline every single one of them. America does this. America and Europe, and they just love to do it. It's their favorite. Genocide is their favorite thing. They do it the most, I would argue, of all the countries out there. They just love to do it.
I think it's like every few days a country celebrates its independence from England.
So it's a thing. So basically, because of this, I'm only going to name two that are current. Thinking specifically about the genocide and exploitation taking place in the Congo right now, so that we can have cell phones, vapes, and other technologies, or the current American-funded genocide taking place in Palestine to steal their natural resources of fresh water, oil, and gas. It all ties together as a critique on how people, and especially people who look like me, are willing or unwilling to sacrifice their day-to-day comforts as well as their ingrained biases to work as a collective. There was a video that covered this nicely on TikTok from a user, Sarah Talks Art, that unpacks a characteristic of white supremacist culture called right to comfort, and how people who look like me feel very strongly that they have a right to their comforts, even if it comes at the cost and exploitation of others, that many people are not willing to give up their vapes or their Starbucks to save literal human lives. Like, even after they know sometimes, are just like, that's a lot. It's nuanced. We don't know enough. I'm going to just continue to go. Which is super gross. And we'll find out in a bunch of years how gross that really was. And everyone will be like, no, I didn't do that. We're America. Just cover it up with a little history. Yep. So they'll choose to look away as long as it's the means to maintain their own sense of safety and their view of the world. Because I'll get into like why people need that later, but it's like a big thing where people just, if they look at it and know, they couldn't allow it. Like, I think that is our human nature. Like, if we know what's happening, we cannot allow it. And then so people just have conditioned themselves, especially here, to look away from what's happening because it's their way of coping and rationalizing and making things sane. Because if you know that this has been happening, you'd be outraged. You'd be burning everything down because it's horrific.
That was the summer of 2020.
Yeah.
So, everyone knowing.
Yeah. Additionally, many feel that they are entitled to that peace without any guilt or consequence. And this film critiques the willingness to not look, to not empathize, to save ourselves at the expense of others. So something that also stood out to me in relating this to American classism is the duality of Red and Adelaide, that they actually aren't different. Like, they are just clones. They're two of the same people. When understanding how trauma impacts the brain, this makes a lot of sense. The theory that the tethers do not have souls, I think, is incorrect because we're given an unreliable narrator of someone who is up top coming down there and being like, these people have no soul.
They have no tact.
Yeah. And talking about like their language, like in all linguistic studies, in a horrible thing that happened in the real world, there was a girl who was kept underground until adulthood, and she did not learn how to talk because she didn't develop language skills before her teenage years. So scientists and linguists were able to deduce that if you do not learn language before puberty finalizes, that it is significantly harder, if like not impossible, for your vocal cords and your brain to learn how to speak. It's not like completely impossible, like the human brain is plastic. You can come back from trauma and things like that, but it is very, very difficult to learn languages after you've completed puberty just because of how your brain develops. Additionally, it's just, they're the same person. We see this in Adelaide, who is a tether, but was given the love and support and had their needs met once they come up and find the real Adelaide's parents, and who was able to live a relatively normal life. She shows a great capacity for love and all the makings of a soul. Adelaide's existence makes it impossible to argue that the tethers are soulless, ultimately saying that all people have the capacity for good as much as they have the capacity to cause harm. The only difference between us and the tethered is the tethered were denied care their entire lives. Their needs, their autonomy were disregarded their entire lives. If given the same opportunity, every tether could have been like the Adelaide we see on screen. And if they would have grown up in the same safety and care, they could have turned out the same as their doubles above. There is also the understanding that the tethers have spent the entirety of their existence in survival mode, never given the opportunity to use the other areas of their brain. Villainizing the tethers, I don't think was Peele's intent, in my opinion, which extra makes it like, what do you mean you signed that letter? It just doesn't make sense. So in a review on High on Films, contextualizing Jordan Peele's Us by Mokalika Batavia, they outline a similar way of thinking, stating, the shocking reveal towards the end makes the character of Red and Adelaide interchangeable. The twist works only if we accept our own brutality and our role in allowing the market to dehumanize and silence our desires, so far so that we even forget our language. We thus become choked in expression and are pulled down to bestiality. Even though the events that ensue in the movie highlight a fight for survival, that ease with which the children, Jason and Zora, embrace their killer identity and then casually argue about their kill count to win a chance to drive to the car during the apocalypse scenario only confirms how we are intrinsically tethered to our other. Every single human that exists can do big bad or big good. It's a choice and also a matter of circumstance. So the tethers have souls. That's my moral of the story. The reveal in the movie, making Red and Adelaide interchangeable, is seen as working only if the viewers acknowledge their own ability to cause harm. That's why you can't have like supervillains, because those don't exist. Like, they're just humans who do bad things. And you can't be like, I cannot understand or fathom how anyone could do that. It's like, yes, anyone can do a bad thing. You need to remove that idea from your brain, because everyone can do messed up things. And it's basically acknowledging their own brutality and complicity in allowing the dehumanization and silencing of desires of that market, so that all of humanity has the capacity to do monstrous things under horrific circumstances. And when we dehumanize other populations, the harm done to them feels lighter to carry to those enacting said harm, but it shouldn't. We see this in Adelaide's reaction to the tethered children dying, because she knows that they could have been given the same life she had. That if given, they may have turned out differently. They may still be alive. Like, you can see it when she's seeing Zora's tether die, like just the pain in her eyes. Like, she feels genuine emotion and sympathy for like what's taken place, as if that was her daughter. Because she knows, like, in any other scenario, her daughter could have been in the same position if put down there. So even the actors did not view their alternate selves as villain, as Gabe said, with a quote from Winston Duke's view of Abraham. And essentially, I'm arguing very strongly that the tethers are not the villains of this story, but rather the system that created and left them in that bunker, and as well as like the people above. The ones like we do, like, we're like, oh no, what if us from below came up here and murdered us? The villains are us. And honestly, if there is I also think of like the countless countries that like America and Western civilization has just dumped plastic on, and they've just been living their lives. And they're like, what do you mean? Like, if everyone who has been tethered to America's harm came to get us, I would understand.
Yeah, it's so real.
So the villains are us. And in an article titled Jordan Peele's Us is Not So Secretly About Class by Noah Ransom, they outline how the enemy in this film is our own dismissive neglect of problems that persist. They say, in us, the tethered are effigies of the same situational classism. They're trapped mentally and physically and ignored. While the Wilson family and others bicker about the rocking and the fancier tugboat, those with the capacity to be just as happy grow darker from fucked up circumstances. And they go on to say, for the functions of classism and marginalization traps to work, the presence of it must never be explicitly seen or acknowledged for what it is. The powerful must do as Ronald Reagan did in Jordan Peele's reference to Hands Across America: fund, take the credit for every victory, regardless of the contradictory attitudes towards the poor. And the potential horrors must be presented with a positive duality: a pair of scissors, a Black family in America, and a horror film. The concepts that we are inherently individualistic, selfish, and out for ourselves only benefit our oppressors at the end of the day. We unpacked this when we covered disaster utopias in the film The Mist. The idea that humans will immediately turn against each other in crisis, that we'll always prioritize ourselves over others on instinct, only benefits our oppressors. So, like that quote was from before, for the functions of classism and marginalization traps to work, the presence of it must never explicitly be seen or acknowledged for what it is. And if that statement is true, that shines a more positive light on our natural instincts as humans, but also like gives more context to like, if the people above knew truly that the tethers existed, would they have been able to cope with that? And I think no. And essentially, if
Adelaide broke.
Yeah. So it's like, if we understood what was really happening, if the government had a worse PR team, everyone would be freaking out. I'll just say that. So the film is a message that we need to educate ourselves. We need to see what's happening. We need to unlearn that taught behavior to look away from what is hard. The tethered population in us also showcases that collectivism is the key to revolution. The tethered population that rises up in us is far more united than the people who live up top and largely succeed because they're not bogged down by the material individualistic teachings of capitalism. They are not in it for themselves. They are like, we need freedom and we're going to work together to get it. And that's because when they're like rationalizing it, they're like, I'll give you money, I'll give you our boat, and they're like, we don't want that, bro. What even is a boat, like, to me? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't care. I want glasses. I want to be able
food. Yeah, that's not bunnies.
Yeah, like literally, like, you have no idea what my life has been for you to offer me a boat. So exactly. So what they wanted was basic human rights, something that material items will never solve. They work together and refuse to exist in these inhumane living conditions and do so by any means necessary. But that does not make them the villains. They will not be denied autonomy and sunlight anymore, so they rise up. A line that still stands out to me that shows Red's motivation and view that a collective could have existed was when they said like they didn't understand why Adelaide didn't take them with them when they escaped. But that's really put into context of like, she's like, why does my freedom have to come at the cost of Red's? And that's where the divide is clear, because like the tethered humans and the topside humans do not view each other as safe, because Adelaide in this context was Red's oppressor. They didn't know, but like, why would she take her with her? Because like, that you were the one oppressing me this whole time. Like, what do you mean? They are a group that has been exploiting them unknowingly this whole time. So it just makes you really like, I sympathize way more with the tethers after this rewatch and after reading all of this than I had in the previous watches, as well as like, you kind of see like what it means to be on the up and like, why would you want to be there? Like, other than like the fact that we want like basic human rights, but like, why would you want to allow for the tethers to live underground? Everyone should live up. And if you're not willing to do that, then Mm. So so that line hits a little more once you know the twist on the second and third watch throughs. And when looking at the horrors of the world, it's easy to become cynical. I just threw a lot at you. That was a lot. It's heavy. All of the world is heavy. Like so much awful is happening all the time, and we're inundated, or we hide from it. So we use social media as this method to like inform ourselves, but also distract. And it is so much easier to look away from what is happening around us. But there are also so many people who do not have that luxury. It's been so ingrained in us in capitalism to do so. And we see that in the film when like it's instilled in childhood where we're like taught not to like look at what's around us for our own safety. We see that in young Adelaide when they ignore the homeless person with the sign. It's ingrained when we're young. So, but the hopeful piece is that there are so many people who are actively fighting against the issues present. We just can't see them sometimes. And all of our actions, even though it feels like we're in a really hopeless situation right now, that like we don't have the power to change, it might just be that we are not seeing the fruits of the labor yet. And I saw this really amazing video where Michaela Loach, they're like a climate activist, and they wrote this book. They talk about how activism is like a mycelium network. Basically, mushrooms and plants have these underground mycelium networks, root systems, essentially, that connect to each other, but are out of sight. And how we only see the mushrooms that form from those networks. And that is a result of the networks working. But we don't get to see how that all happens. So they say activism is like a mycelium network underground doing the work, and that the winds are like mushrooms, but not all actions taken can form a whole mushroom. It's the collectiveness of each action that combines to make future mushrooms possible. It's like all this work is happening, but we don't see it all the time. We only see the horrible things that are happening. So while it may feel like the things aren't working as individual actions, we might feel powerless. A mushroom is coming. We just can't see it yet. So any failures are just signals and the groundwork for future success. Because they're talking about like specifically in climate activism, like there were so many movements around like preventing oil lines being built that failed. But it's so those failures set the groundwork for their success in shutting one down. So it's all setting the groundwork for future success. It's not useless action because you're building a foundation of action to make it known that we're not okay with this. So acting.
It also makes me think of like how people are like boycotting like Starbucks, and you think like, oh, that's not going to do anything. Like I've been doing it because I used to drink Starbucks, and then I saw like some information where it was like, no, they lost so much money to the point where the government is telling people they're not allowed to boycott anymore, but there's no way to like do anything about it.
So like Starbucks went bankrupt, and
direct
5
actions
others are closing. Goods. Yeah, it's happening. It's working. It's happening. So yeah, acting in opposition, even though it feels like it won't make an impact, just because we can't see it anyway, does not mean the mushroom isn't coming. We're going to see it, I think, in our lifetime. I have I've had a feeling about that since I was a little kid. I feel like it's happening. It's something big is going to happen in this period, and it's coming.
The untethering.
Yeah. So the mushroom is coming. We just maybe don't see it yet. And like they say, like the first through the door is the bloodiest. That was something Substantial said at the Tribbles episode, where it's like, that is true. We are laying the groundwork. Even if we do not live to see the mushroom will happen. We just have to have faith that that's going to happen through these actions. So trying is better than complacency. That's the moral of my section as well.
No, I love that. I love the mushroom. I love just like that whole that imagery. Also, like just even specifically thinking about climate change, just as like an offshoot here. Thinking about all the things that climate activists were doing, and the fact that like the ozone is starting to heal itself. Like I remember when I was really little, the ozone was very scary because there was a straight up huge hole, and it's not normal anymore, but it is significantly less harmful. Like it's not as in danger as it was. It's because we did all those things, and at the time they seemed like nothing. They seemed like little things, but it's a big deal. It's even just thinking about like lead in the paint and how, it affected the learning of a lot of people. And now we have entire political groups that got lead poisoning.
Yeah.
And it shows.
Mhm.
It shows. So, yeah.
Places you can boycott: Starbucks, McDonald's, HP. I have an HP monitor box from my job that purchased a monitor for me that was 1,000,000 years ago. Don't shop there anymore. They're canceled. Don't go to HP. There's so many people. There's so many little things you can do, even if it's just share copy link.
Yeah, and watching, there are times where like I was just super inundated with videos from Gaza, and I like valued them because the mainstream media isn't covering those things, right? And
No.
like, when they see the news in the film too, they're like, they don't even know that yet. They don't know that it's us yet, right? And it was all reactionary. It was all like, it was still not covering what they needed to cover.
Yeah. So
And that's what they'd be doing now. So I'll have to say that boycotting works, and it might feel like you're the drop in the ocean, right? But it does just take one drop to unsettle the top of the water. I think there's a bastardization of something Gandhi said maybe once. So I do recommend watching the movie, and I recommend watching it several times. I also recommend. No, I'm not going to recommend that right now. I will say that given the brief time that Us and Get Out were on Netflix, that it does, like I saw this quote from Guillermo del Toro that said that it's kind of like a scary place for creators, that they're relying on streaming services, because if a streaming service decides like we're not going to have that anymore, something falls through, it's just gone. That piece of media is like erased. So, supporting artists and like, keeping their work and buying their work and stuff is really important. I would just say maybe wait until hopefully Pio says something, because he's gotta. That's so crazy. I can't, like, the fact that this can exist, and for him to have such a critique on America and then not critique America.
Yeah, it's super weird. It doesn't make sense.
Is it because you got money now, bud?
Yeah.
Are you afraid of the money?
Yeah. Or he's worried about the consequence because like people's careers are getting ended by talking about it, but like.
He made Get Out.
I know, yeah. It just doesn't make sense. I totally agree. Like, it just doesn't make sense.
He made a character that just like shoots a white woman in the stomach. He just a character that just kills a bunch of white people.
Yeah. It's really weird for him to like care.
You did it. You're in control of your whole career.
White supremacist Zionist America will
any sense
care about, And before anyone comes for us, I had 160 plus relatives die in the Holocaust. You don't need to tell me or leverage the genocide of my people to validate another one. So don't do it. It's dumb. You don't know what you're talking about, friend. That's okay.
That's
learn.
For sure. Yeah, learn. Yeah, learn. Don't be so ignorant. Yeah. And my excuse is that I'm brown. So come on, try. No. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope it excited you about this film. I hope it maybe set a fire under you to do something about the real issues that are happening that we can see in a fun way in the film, but in a really terrifying real horror way in the world, because that's how our show works. That's literally what we do. So
no corporations own us.
That's it.
We don't get paid for this, and unintentionally, because if we did, I guess it would be bad, because we have to not say things.
Nobody tells me what to say, and that is both a strength and a weakness. I would love money, but we don't have that. So we're going to use that as our... we're going to use it. We're going to take advantage of our unaffiliated status right now. So somebody will hear us. Someone did once really like that we were vocal in 2020. So maybe somebody else will be cool. So We got a lot. This series is actually going to be 2 months long because we have a lot of things that we want to cover. It's just such an exciting like series to do and some things that we want to talk about. And so I hope you stay tuned. Let us know what you think. What's your favorite Jordan Peele movie? And don't get married.
Delete your kids.
Mm-hmm. Or you and your kids come up from the underground and come at you and your kids.
And you're like, I get it, friend.
Yeah, like, no. We could be cool. We could be cool.
I totally understand.
Yeah, you're right, man. You're right.
Yeah. I should have known. Oops.
All right, bye.
Bye.